I could see the panic in her eyes the second she realized it was me standing there instead of the guy she was expecting. That's when her secret life started to unravel right in front of me. It all started earlier that morning. My buddy Frank was swinging by to pick me up for a 4-day hunting trip. I said goodbye to Nora, my wife, like I always did, kiss on the cheek, quick hug, nothing seemed off. Frank pulled up in his truck, the back already loaded down with gear. He popped open the bed cover and slid out a drawer behind the cab. "Put your rifle in here," he said, pointing to a padded compartment. I nestled it in with the rest of the equipment, then hopped in the passenger seat and glanced back at the house one last time. The front door was already shut. We drove out to this old family cabin that used to belong to Frank's uncle Bob. Bob's getting up there in age and can't really get around anymore, so Frank looks after the place now. He's done a lot of upgrades, better insulation, a solid wood stove that actually keeps the place warm without constantly feeding it logs. Even added a satellite dish so we'd have television and internet. "There's no cell signal out here worth a damn," Frank said. "But if you need to call Nora, you can use WhatsApp over Wi-Fi." I just shrugged and told him I kind of liked being unreachable. "No sense telling Nora we've got internet," I said. "Let me enjoy a little peace." That night we had dinner and watched some sports highlights. Frank had his laptop open while I kicked back with a John Sandford novel. We weren't out there to party or get drunk, we just wanted to spend some quiet time in the woods, maybe bring home some venison. We were working on our second beers when Frank suddenly blurted out, "Oh, crap." I closed my book and looked over at him. He was staring at his screen, scrolling like a madman. "Holy double crap," he muttered, eyes still locked on whatever he was looking at. "What is it?" I asked, putting my book down. "What's going on?" Frank's voice dropped a little. "Man, you're gonna want to see this." He turned the laptop toward me. I got up and sat next to him, thinking I was about to read some horrible news headline. But it wasn't a news site. It was some kind of dating platform, and right there on the screen was Nora. My wife. Smiling like the cat that ate the canary. I always thought that smile of hers looked a little too sharp. I stared at Frank. "What the hell is this?" He looked just as lost as I was. "I'm sorry, James. It's a dating site." "A dating site?" I said, blinking hard. "Are you kidding me? After Nora and I hit a rough patch, and before we got married, I tried dating apps. I knew what kind of stuff was out there. Tinder, random hookup sites, some of those places didn't even bother pretending to be about relationships." Frank tried to explain. "I mean, I've seen a lot of fake profiles on there. Sometimes they steal photos and names, and the person has no idea. Could be the case with Nora." I hoped he was right. But as I looked closer at the profile, it was clearly her. No doubt about it. The pictures were recent too, one even showed her in a red outfit I bought for her last Christmas. It was a newer shot, definitely not taken by me. Then I read the profile description, and my stomach turned. It started with, "Can you help me with my daddy issues?" And I do not mean sugar daddy. She went on about her dad, how he always seemed curious about things but never followed through. She wrote about how she sometimes imagined him when he was younger. Or even as an older, retired guy. "Daddy's girl would love some company this weekend," she said, "especially if you are clean and match the look." The profile ended with, "Current status, closing soon." That made my heart thud in my chest. I turned to Frank. "Daddy issues? What the actual hell?" Frank tried to soften the blow. "Look, some women aren't unhappy in their marriages. They just got fantasies they don't know how to talk about. Some stuff they're scared to share." I kept reading. The next part hit me even harder. She described the kind of man she wanted. Said he should have a Mediterranean look, dark hair, dark eyes, that strong Roman nose. 6'5", lean, athletic. That was me. Not Nora's dad. Her real dad, Sean, is Irish as they come, pale, with rusty red hair. But everything in that post was describing me. Then came the part that broke me. There was a chat box on the bottom of the profile, and I scrolled through it. One message stood out. "Hey, I have a lot of free time this month. Do you have space for me?" Nora had replied, "Of course. Let me know when you want to come over again. Did you enjoy yourself last month?" My throat went dry. I could barely get the words out. She's been doing this for a while. I turned to Frank, hoping for answers. "Can you tell how long she's been on this site? Is she doing this for money?" I felt sick, half expecting to see a live video feed or something even worse. Frank didn't say a word, just started digging deeper into the site. Frank stared at the screen, scrolling through Nora's profile. "Far as I can tell, this looks like your average dating site," he said. "Nothing here says she's running some kind of business. Seems more like she's doing it for kicks." He paused, then added, "Maybe she thought one time would scratch the itch." "One time?" I growled. "Frank, she's lining up a whole weekend while I'm out here in the woods." "Look, James," he said, trying to calm me down. "This is one of those pop-up sites. It's more about speed dating, not long-term stuff." I leaned in and said, "Make a date with her." Frank blinked at me. "What?" "Swipe right, or whatever the heck you gotta do. See if she's free this weekend. I want to know if she's really doing this while I'm up here thinking we're good." He hesitated. "I mean, I could try, but I don't match her description. She wants a photo." That's when it hit me, she wanted someone who looked like me. I shared my idea, use my picture to set up a meeting. Frank thought it might just work. But then I reminded him it might already be too late. "I could blow the whole thing up right now," I said, by messaging her and telling her I'm coming home with my rifle. "Bad idea," Frank warned. "Don't give her a heads up." He pointed out that she had said she was free Friday and Sunday. Frank and I had taken Friday and Monday off for this trip, so nobody was expecting me home until late Monday. "If you message her now," Frank said, "you give her time to make up a story." There was anger in his voice. I remembered how his wife Tracy had walked out on him for her boss. This was hitting close to home for him, too. "If we leave now," he said, "you can catch her in the act. With proof." He gave me a sideways grin while looking at Nora's profile. It was a little over a 3-hour drive to get back. We ran through the possibilities, whether to surprise her, follow her to one of her dates, or just walk in and catch her red-handed. And then there was the other big topic we couldn't avoid, divorce. Frank had gone through hell with his own, but that experience could help me now. After going over the same plans for the third time, we finally loaded up and hit the road. The truck was quiet most of the way. Neither of us had much to say. We pulled onto my street a little before 11 o'clock. Frank slowed down as we passed my house. "Keep driving," I said. He glanced at me but gave the truck more gas. "Turn the corner and stop," I told him. He followed my lead, then looked at me again. I nodded toward a car parked across from my place. "That car doesn't belong here," I said. "Nobody parks on the street at night. She's already started, and she's doing it in our house." I reached for the door handle. "Thanks, man. You can leave." But Frank didn't budge. "Screw that. We came all this way. We've got a plan. Either we check it out together or we wait till tomorrow." "I have to know," I said. "James, even if she's alone, it doesn't prove anything," he argued. "You'll just spiral." "I still need to know," I said again, more firmly. Frank gave in. "All right. Plan B." He swung the truck down the alley that ran behind my house. "Whether she's alone or not," he said, "we take a look, then go in. But think this through. My own divorce taught me one thing: do not react without thinking." He nodded toward the back seat. "Figuratively speaking, remember what's in the truck." "Of course." My rifle. Frank parked, and we got out quietly. We moved through the shadows, sticking to the dark edges of fences and trees. I reached for the side gate. We had one of those cheap alligator-style latches. I hoped Nora forgot to lock it after taking out the trash, and luckily, she had. We slipped into the backyard. Our bedroom was tucked in the back corner of the house. A dim light leaked out from behind the curtains. We moved slow, careful not to crunch any dry leaves. When we got close enough, I tried to peek inside, but the curtain was pulled tight. Frank shook his head. I stepped closer and finally spotted a small gap in the fabric. I leaned in. There they were. Nora and some older guy. On the bed. Together. For a second, I almost lost it. My hand twitched toward my belt, where I usually kept my multi-tool. But Frank caught my wrist. He didn't say a word, just gave me that look and pulled me back. I resisted, then gave in. What was I going to do, really? Frank threw his hands up in frustration, walked to the side gate, and I followed. Back at the truck, I glanced down at the lockbox tucked under the seat. Inside were rifles, a .357 Magnum, and some bear spray. Frank saw where I was looking but said nothing. "We've been here too long," he muttered, then started the engine and eased the truck out of the alley. He drove a few blocks and pulled into a mostly empty grocery store parking lot. The store had closed down, just a couple of employee cars left. "Why do I not just go back there and knock some heads?" I asked, the anger rising in my chest again. "Because you'll end up in jail," Frank said bluntly. "It's not his fault. She invited him. He probably does not even know she's married." I let that sink in. "I need to be cold and smart about this," I said, repeating what Frank had told me earlier. "If I want out of this marriage, I gotta do it on my terms." Back at Frank's apartment, he took the rifles and bear spray and locked everything up in his weapons cabinet. Said I wasn't allowed near them until my head was clear. We sat at the kitchen counter. He poured 2 shots of tequila, and we raised our glasses to the wreckage of it all. Followed that with some Pacifico beers. "She's cheating on you, with you," Frank muttered, staring at the table. "Maybe she's trying to chase that spark you two had in the beginning." "I wasn't 55 back then," I said flatly. "And our bed didn't go cold. Maybe she still loves you and just wants more of you. Maybe this whole daddy thing is her weird way of explaining it." I shook my head, brushing that off completely. Then Frank said something else, something that really didn't sit right. "You could open things up, you know. Control the chaos." I gave him a look. That was not happening. Not a chance in hell. Instead, I asked for another shot. The next morning, we overslept. But we got back on track. Frank dropped me off at a car rental place, and I picked up a plain sedan, nothing flashy. Then I headed to a bank Nora and I never used together. Just a quiet little branch. I opened a checking account and transferred half of our savings and about 20% of our main checking into it. Figured I'd need a head start. The guy at the bank, Jim, was a solid dude. Before I left, he made sure I didn't empty the joint account completely. "Leave enough in there to cover the mortgage, car payments, and the credit cards," he said. "Keeps your credit from taking a hit." Good advice. He even helped me set up their mobile banking app on my phone so I could keep an eye on things from a distance. Next stop was the T-Mobile store. I picked up a dual-SIM phone with one of those fancy cameras that could practically see in the dark. I didn't make any changes to our family account though. I didn't want Nora getting a notification that might tip her off. Truth be told, I was itching to confront her. But Frank, being the voice of reason, convinced me to take the weekend and play this smart. Use the time. Gather everything. Go in with facts, not just rage. "Sir? Are you all right?" the salesgirl asked. I blinked. I had been sitting there staring into space, lost in my thoughts. She was showing me how to switch between SIM cards, but I hadn't heard a word. "Oh, sorry," I said, snapping out of it. "Banged my knee yesterday. Been flaring up real bad." She gave me a skeptical look but nodded politely. "Hope it heals up quick." I limped out of there, not from the knee, but from the weight in my chest. Frank and I met up at a nearby Starbucks. Over hot coffee, we mapped out the next steps. After that, we drove back toward my neighborhood. We left Frank's truck, hard to miss with the big chrome grille and custom tires, in the same grocery store lot from the night before. It was busier now, which helped it blend in. This time, we took the rental car. Looked like any other boring sedan. When we rolled up to my house, I noticed Nora's car and that red Hyundai were both gone. My own car was tucked away in the garage, just like I'd left it. We circled to the alley. I jumped out and made my way through the back gate, still unlocked. I actually caught myself thinking I should remind her to start locking it. Then I shook my head. Lucky for me, she didn't. Coming in through the front door might raise eyebrows with the neighbors. We stuck to the plan. Frank took his post in the grocery store lot. From there, he had a good view of the main route we always used, Eldridge Parkway and 3rd Street. If anything changed, he'd see it. I slipped into the house through the back door and crept into the utility room. From there, I pulled down the attic ladder using a broom handle. It was one of those half-sized crawl spaces, not even tall enough to stand in. You had to crouch and move carefully or risk banging your head on the beams. The walkie-talkie on my belt crackled twice, Frank's way of telling me he was in position. He'd give a double beep every 10 minutes, kind of like a countdown. I tapped the button once to confirm. The bags I needed were only a few feet from the trapdoor. I grabbed an old canvas duffel and a beat-up backpack I used to use for work. I didn't want to take anything obvious from downstairs. Less chance Nora would notice. Once I had the bags, I lowered the attic ladder and wiped it down, checking for fingerprints or anything that might look suspicious. Then I headed to the little nook in the living room where we kept our home office. Opened the small safe and grabbed my passport, social security card, birth certificate, marriage license, and my will. All went into the briefcase. There was also a stash of $2,000 in cash. I took half. The safe had a handful of gold coins too, worth around $5,000, but I left those and just pocketed the purchase receipt. I did not want to raise any red flags just yet. Another double beep from Frank. 10 minutes had passed. I moved to the bedroom and grabbed a few dress clothes, just enough that she would not notice anything missing. Black slacks, a couple of shirts and ties, dress socks, and my black loafers. Kept it subtle. The hard part was setting up surveillance. Back at Starbucks, Frank and I had figured out how to use the new phone's time-lapse feature. We did not need sound, just visuals. I wedged the phone on top of a cabinet, nestled between a few of my hats. It had a clear shot of most of the bed, about 80% coverage. I adjusted the curtains a little to make things easier to peek through in the future, even though Frank had warned me not to mess with anything that might look out of place. I figured it was worth the risk. Just as I finished, I got another signal from Frank, 10 more minutes gone. In the living room, I set up a trail camera we had brought from the cabin. Mounted it high on a bookshelf to cover the sitting area. It had a motion sensor, a fresh battery, and a blank SD card. It would capture anything that moved for the whole 3-day weekend. The bedroom phone was set to upload photos to my cloud every 6 hours. Redundancy. With just a couple minutes to spare, I slipped back out, locked up, and made my way through the yard. I got Frank's final signal as I approached his position. We sat in the car, watching the corner where 3rd Street met Eldridge Parkway, just waiting. Eventually, we left and went through the Kentucky Fried Chicken drive-thru, then headed back to Frank's place. We spread out at his kitchen table, food on one side, notepads and loose papers on the other. It looked more like we were planning a hostile corporate takeover than dealing with a cheating wife. I was not really hungry, but I picked at my chicken tenders and fries anyway. Just something to do with my hands. I was way more focused on the Jack Daniels Frank had poured into my cola than I was on the fast food sitting in front of me. Then Frank said, "All right, man. You should text her. Gotta keep things looking normal." Nora already knew that cell signal in the mountains was spotty at best. She used that as an excuse not to call, which worked fine for me too. Avoiding awkward conversations was the norm. We had a routine where I'd shoot her a message, just in case I stumbled across a signal while hiking. Made it look like I was trying, at least. I stared at my phone. What the hell am I supposed to say? Frank reached over. Give it here. He scrolled through some of our old messages, then started typing. Here we go, the usual, he muttered. He read it aloud as he typed, Hey babe, made it up here no problem. Weather's looking good. We're hitting the trail early tomorrow. I'll check in again later. Hugs and kisses, James. He hit send and before I could say anything, he was already dialing another number. Time to call the lawyer, he said. He handed the phone over after introducing me. This is Harper Quinn. She handled my divorce, she's good. Hello, James, a warm voice answered. Frank didn't tell me your last name, by the way. It's Bennett. James Bennett, I replied, trying to sound a little calmer than I felt. All right, James. I take it this just came out of the blue? Sounds like a tough situation. Yeah, real ugly. Sorry for the language. She laughed gently. You're talking to your lawyer. If you can't vent here, where can you? That actually helped me breathe a little easier. So, are you my lawyer now? Do I even need one yet? Let me answer the second part first, she said. This is about cheating, right? Are you thinking about trying to forgive her and maybe go to counseling? Hell no, I said without hesitation. Okay, good. So the next question, are you comfortable using the online system to file everything yourself? That only works for no-fault divorce, right? I can't file for adultery that way. Correct, she said. If you want the infidelity to play a role in things like alimony, you'll need an attorney. Can you represent me? Frank says you helped him a lot. He mentioned what I charge? He did. Well, my rates have gone up a little, but I'll give you the same deal I gave him. Fair enough? Yeah, that works. When can we meet? I can squeeze you in Monday morning. I covered the phone with my hand and whispered to Frank, she wants to get started right away. She's interested. Frank grinned. Told you. Back on the line, I said, that's perfect. Should I bring evidence? You already have proof, she asked. Sounds like this all just happened. Yeah. We took screenshots of her online profile, and I saw her with some guy last night. I also set up a camera in our bedroom to catch whatever else might happen while I'm gone. She posted personal ads online? That's unique, she said. And she was targeting guys who look like you? Exactly. She even described someone with my exact features. Just to clarify, have you gained much weight since you two got married? Nope, I said. Still 6 feet tall, 187 pounds. Maybe 5 pounds heavier than back then. I lift and run regularly. Good to know. We'll go over everything Monday. All right. That's good. Okay, James. After we hang up, I'll send you a secure file upload link. Frank knows the address. Send me whatever you have, and I'll look over it before we meet at 11 o'clock Monday. 11 it is, I said. And James, she added, her tone serious, avoid your wife until we talk. Do not go home. I handle family law, not criminal. I let that sink in. Understood. After we hung up, I got the secure login code and sent her the screenshots of Nora's dating profile. Frank checked my phone not long after. Your wife responded, he said, raising an eyebrow. Then he read the message, miss you, hope you're having a good time. Happy hunting. Love, Nora. Frank typed back, no deer yet, but we're wiped. Crashing for the night. Then he tossed the phone into his gun safe. This'll act like a Faraday cage, he said. It'll block the signal. So even though the message is sent, it won't go through. I'll turn it off completely. When you boot it up again later, it'll look like it was delayed due to bad reception. You read too many spy novels, I joked. Maybe, he said. But I don't want you slipping up now. After that, Frank shared more about his divorce, how he had to keep paying the mortgage and spousal support, even though his ex was already with someone else. I hoped that Nora's cheating would save me from going through the same hell. We used what Frank learned the hard way. I closed out investment accounts that were in my name and changed the login info on everything Nora had access to. I updated the contact emails and phone numbers to my new accounts. I even canceled most of our joint credit cards, left one active that Nora used for daily stuff but dropped the limit way down. Then the time came. We had set the new phone to upload footage every 6 hours to my cloud account. It was time to check the first batch. I opened the folder and nearly choked on my Kentucky Fried Chicken. I had set the phone to snap 6 pictures every 30 seconds, on the quarter hour. Most of the sets showed an empty room, though she had changed the pillowcases, which told me she knew someone was coming over. But 6 photo batches were totally blank, and 5 showed Nora, with 2 different men. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "I gotta get out of this," I muttered. Frank just nodded. "Yeah, man. You do." "Come on," Frank said, trying to lighten the mood. "Let's grab a drink." My treat. But I shook my head. "Nah, man. I need to be alone right now." "I really don't think that's a good idea, James." I snapped, not meaning to. "Frank, I need to throw up. I need to cry. I just need to be by myself." He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with that mix of concern and stubbornness. Then finally, he said, "All right. But listen, don't go to a bar. Don't get behind the wheel drunk. That won't help anything." "I won't," I promised. "I'm not going home either. I'll just drive for a bit. Clear my head." He gave me a long look and nodded, reluctantly. "Get on the highway. Just go. Take a few deep breaths. But before you leave." He made sure to upload the photos of every guy Nora had been with to Harper, the attorney. He handed me my phone and reminded me to turn it back on, so the message I sent earlier would finally go through to Nora, and so he could check in on me if he needed to. "Thanks," I told him. "I swear I'll stay away from booze." I drove for a while, about 30 minutes north, then turned around, just letting the sky go fully dark. When I got back near the neighborhood, the supermarket was still open, so I parked there and headed toward the alley behind my house. The back gate was locked this time, but I climbed over the fence anyway. I moved quietly across the yard, my heart pounding in my chest. Peeking through the gap in the curtains, I saw Nora, again, in bed with someone. As I started moving toward the back door, my phone buzzed. A message. Then a call. It was Frank. I ignored both. Then I heard a voice come out of the shadows. "I see you, you idiot." It was Frank. He was standing in the bed of his truck, arms crossed. "Get over here," he warned. "Or I'll start honking and wake up the whole damn block." I cursed under my breath and crept back to the fence, making more noise than I liked. Last thing I wanted was the neighbors peeking out their windows. "What the hell, Frank?" I hissed. "She's in there with some toy soldier." "I'm gonna teach him some manners," Frank said, jaw clenched. "No, you're not," I said. "Get out of here or I'll call the cops myself." I climbed into the bed of his truck and we drove away in silence. He parked us at a small dive bar on Eldridge Parkway, just a couple blocks from the supermarket. We found a booth in the back, away from the noise. Frank slid me a shot of Jim Beam and cracked open a Budweiser. "Drink that first," he said. "Then you can talk." I took the shot, then a long sip of the beer, and finally let it out. "She's turned my house into some kind of brothel. I can't ever sleep there again. But I'll be damned if I let her keep doing it." Frank didn't flinch. "Then let's stop it." "What?" "Give me your phone." I handed it over, confused. Frank scrolled to Nora's contact and hit call. He put the phone on speaker. After 5 rings, she picked up, breathing heavy like she was surprised. "James?" "Wait, what? I mean, what a nice surprise." You must really miss me, she said sweetly. Frank answered instead. Hey, Nora. It's Frank. Frank? Why are you calling? Is James okay? She asked, suddenly sounding concerned. He had a little accident, Frank said smoothly. Not too serious, but I might take him down the mountain tonight. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. Oh my God, what happened? Can I talk to him? Calm down, Frank said, keeping it casual. It's not that bad. He slipped, hit his head on a tree branch. He's resting now with an ice pack. If he starts acting weird, I'll take him to the hospital. Should I come there? She asked, panicked. No need, he said. Then he rubbed his thumb over the phone's microphone and slid the whole thing under the table, blocking the signal. Frank? I didn't catch that last part, she said through static. He gave the mic one last swipe. 1 bar now. More later, he said vaguely. Then he hung up. Well, Frank said, raising his beer, we just paused the party. For the first time in almost a full day, I laughed. A real laugh. I needed that, I said. Frank nodded. She'll probably panic. Might send her boyfriend packing. Probably cancel the other dates too. We left the bar and walked back toward the store parking lot. Frank casually mentioned, I bet Nora's been telling those guys to park over here, away from the house, so the neighbors don't get suspicious. How thoughtful, I said, smirking. Shoo, Frank whispered suddenly. I think that's one of 'em. Ahead of us, a guy in a military uniform was walking toward the lot. Frank stepped slightly in front of me. Evening, he said. The guy barely nodded. Frank turned fully, stopping him. He looked at me, then back at the guy. He looks like you did when you were younger. The guy furrowed his brow, then his eyes darted between the two of us. Young daddy, Frank said, motioning toward the soldier, meet your real husband. The soldier blinked. What? You like married women, huh? I growled, stepping forward. Frank immediately stepped between us. Easy, James. He turned to the guy. You didn't notice any photos in the house? One that looked like, say, an older brother? The soldier's face changed. I could see the realization settle in. She said she was divorced, he mumbled. Not yet, I said. But soon. Oh, crap, he muttered and turned to run. I wanted to go after him. I really did. But Frank stepped in front of me again. No, man. Not worth it. For the second time in 2 days, I almost shoved my best friend aside. But then I saw his face, really saw it. The pain was still there. Losing Tracy had left a scar. And now he was trying to keep me from getting one just as deep. I lost my wife to a cheater, he said. I don't want to lose you too. I backed off, chest still heaving. You already lost the war, kid, he said quietly. If you chase him down now, you'll win one small battle, but you'll lose everything else. Don't throw your future away on some punk. I slumped against the hood of the rental car, drained. Maybe I'll punch him later, I muttered. Frank chuckled. Sure. Give it 6 months. After we've built your alibi. We sat in silence in the store parking lot, just staring out at the night. It seemed like Nora had finally kicked that soldier out, and Frank figured maybe her cheating days were behind her. He was getting real tired of me constantly digging into it, but he still agreed to give me an hour to see things through. We spent about 30 minutes at the bar, nursing a couple of beers and talking things over, before heading back to the car. Not long after, this Nissan Sentra with no license plates pulled up near the house. A guy got out, looked kinda like me, could have passed for a cousin or something. He stood under a streetlight, checking the signs to figure out where he was, then started walking up 3rd Street. I took off down 2nd, planning to loop around and come up behind him without being seen. Frank, being the steady one, followed the guy to keep me from doing something stupid. I waited quietly at the corner where Permian meets 3rd. The guy slowed down and checked the number on my house. Sure enough, he walked right up to the front door. I ducked behind a tree so he would not spot me and watched. He rang the bell, and I heard my mom open the door just a crack. I could not see her, but I heard her voice, low and muffled, too quiet to make out what she was saying. After a few seconds, the door shut again. Then, he knocked louder this time. I guess Nora opened it up with the chain still on because I heard her say, "I am sorry, but whatever this was, it is over. Please leave now, or I will call the police." The door slammed shut, and I heard the deadbolt slide into place. The guy just stood there, probably realizing he had driven all that way for nothing. He muttered something under his breath, sounded like, "What the hell," and then something about a cow. But before he could do anything else, the porch light on the neighbor's house flicked on, and the front door creaked open. That spooked him. He turned fast and hurried down the sidewalk, trying to look casual. Honestly, those nosy old neighbors probably saved my skin. If he had seen me, things might have gone sideways. I stayed hidden until old Raymond Knox peeked out and watched the man walk away. Once it was all clear, I slipped down 3rd Street, fighting the urge to march right up and knock on my own door. Frank was waiting for me around the corner on Red Hill, and we headed back to Eldridge. We were in the supermarket parking lot when we heard the screech of tires. Someone was peeling out fast. "Anger and driving are a dangerous mix," Frank muttered. I nodded and said, "No kidding." The next morning, I woke up on the couch in Frank's guest room. Barely slept. Felt like I had run a marathon in my mind. I checked the security footage from the night before. Nothing new. Nora probably had a rough night too. I started putting together photos of Mazen's counters, figured I would send them to my attorney. I asked Frank, "Think I should send that video I took through the window too?" He shook his head. "No way. What you got from the outside camera is enough. Let us not bring up that part where you snuck around the house." "You think that toy soldier got the message?" I asked while emailing the photos. Frank gave me a grin. "Probably. But I hope he stops trying to play hero before he runs into a husband who is not afraid to use an unlocked gun." "Thanks for ruining my appetite," I muttered. Frank smirked. "Come on, let us send Harper her wake-up call. That will cheer you up." When I turned on my phone, I saw a dozen missed calls and messages, all from Nora. I called her back and left a message. "Hey babe, it's James. Sorry if Frank scared you. I am fine. I will stick with the plan and come back Monday night. Love you." I hit send. Almost right after, my phone rang again. It was Harper. "Hey Harper, did not expect to hear from you on a Saturday morning," I said. She replied, "Hi James. I saw your new package on the website." I covered the mic and looked at Frank. "Should I tell her?" He gave a nod. "Harper, I am putting you on speaker. Frank is going to explain why things got quiet at my house last night." Frank jumped in. "Good morning, Harper." "Morning, Frank. What are you two up to?" "Did my sarcasm about Tracy rub off on you?" she teased. Frank explained the prank calls and the messages we sent but conveniently left out the part about us sneaking around back or me stalking the guy on the porch. "I kind of like that," Harper said when he finished. "Are you sure she canceled her other dates?" Just then, I checked my phone and saw Nora had replied. I read it out loud. "Forget the deer, come home. I need you. I love you. Please come back now." "Told you," Frank said. "Told him what?" Harper asked. "That she still loves him, no matter what," Frank replied. I asked, "Harper, in your line of work, have you come across people with serious sex addiction? Like real nymphomaniacs?" She paused. "Yes, I have had clients and their spouses with severe mental health problems. It happens. So I am just supposed to accept that? Forgive her if she blames it all on some disorder?" Harper answered, "You have seen the pictures. I do not think you will ever forget them. But if she gets a diagnosis, it could affect the divorce. Still, no judge is going to deny you a divorce after everything she did." That was the moment I made my choice. Harper, how soon can you file the papers? I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live with her. I understand, she said. I will have some options ready for us to talk about on Monday. We will likely need to meet with her and her lawyer before we go further. All right, but what do I tell her when I do not come home Monday night? You will not have to say anything. I will handle that. So what do I do now? I asked. I have reviewed everything you have done. You are covered. Doing anything more might backfire. Sit tight, stay calm, and do not make any rash moves. Frank gave me a look and said, I am doing my best to keep him from doing anything crazy, but he keeps testing my patience. Then Harper added, by the way, James, did you not say you were still good for Kay? Frank and I froze. I was not sure if she meant physically or emotionally. Yeah, I think I said something like that, I answered carefully. Good. Run along then. Goodbye, boys, she said, and hung up. My mom called again. I shut off my phone. Following Harper's advice, I figured it was time to clear my head. I had not packed for a hunt, so I went out and bought some running clothes. Frank joined me for a jog, but after about 3 miles, he was done. I still had energy to burn, so he suggested a better way to blow off steam. We tossed the rifles into his truck and drove out to a shooting range about an hour away. Figured it was time to let off some pressure, the kind only loud gunfire and the smell of gunpowder can really fix. I ended up firing way more rounds than Frank did, so he finished cleaning his rifle first. While I was still wiping mine down, he struck up a conversation with the range master. I noticed them both glancing over at me a few times. On the drive back, I asked, so what did he say to you? Frank kind of chuckled. He just asked if I could make sure you only shoot paper targets. And what did you tell him? I told him I could. Soon as we got back to his place, Frank locked my rifle up in his gun safe without saying much. Honestly, I didn't even argue. That whole weekend dragged on like molasses. Frank did his best to keep me busy. We sat around watching a bunch of Marvel movies, and he kept a close eye on how much whiskey I drank, made sure I alternated with non-alcoholic stuff, just so I wouldn't spiral. He even took over texting Nora for me, telling her I was doing fine and still out on the hunt. On Sunday, he sent her a message saying I planned to spend the day in a tree stand. She's starting to call you an idiot for not coming home, he said, laughing. Wait until she gets served those divorce papers, I said. I hated how satisfying that line felt, because deep down, I was hurting bad. I still loved her. Thought she loved me too. Maybe she just snapped, had some kind of breakdown. I started wondering if I was going to need therapy myself just to get through all this. By the time Monday rolled around, I was running on fumes after 4 sleepless nights. But even exhausted, I was sure about one thing: I couldn't stay married to Nora. She had planned too much, enjoyed it too much. That wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice. Frank and I sent her a text that morning saying we were heading out again and wouldn't be back until late. I also apologized for scaring her Friday night, told her I was okay. We were sitting in the grocery store parking lot near my house when her reply came in: you let me suffer all weekend and you still can't give up chasing that deer to come home early. Maybe you should just go stay at Frank's because I don't want to see you right away. I had to smirk at the irony. She had no idea that was exactly what I planned to do. About 15 minutes later, I spotted her car driving down 3rd Street, turning onto Eldridge like she always did on her way to work. Once she was gone, I parked in the alley behind our house. I was not exactly in stealth mode, but I avoided the front to keep the neighbors from getting curious. When the coast was clear, I climbed over the fence and went in through the back door. First thing I did was grab the camera from the living room, then my backup phone from the bedroom. I headed into the second bedroom, used to be our storage room, part pantry, part closet, but we had once called it the nursery. That dream was gone now, and the memory of it stung something fierce. I pulled out a suitcase and filled it with more clothes, a few gold coins I had tucked away in the safe, and my laptop. I figured Nora would hear the news from Harper before realizing I had even been in the house. Back at Frank's place, I took the SD card from the camera and popped it into the laptop. I was beyond wiped out, brushed my teeth, laid down in my clothes, and passed out until Frank woke me up. "Hey, the video stopped recording in the living room," he said. He was in the kitchen, microwaving some breakfast sandwiches. The smell of coffee was already floating through the place. "Ah, the bachelor life," he said with a grin. "Go ahead and check the rest of the footage," he added. "Might actually make you feel better." He had set my laptop on the coffee table with a shot of whiskey next to it. Monday morning, and here I was already falling into the habits of a newly single man. What the hell? I took the shot and hit play. Frank was right. Watching that footage turned out to be more eye-opening than I expected. After that soldier left, we saw clip after clip of Nora pacing the living room, glued to her phone, texting, calling, probably trying to get in touch with me. Saturday night, Sunday, she was like a caged animal. She looked more frustrated every time I ignored her messages in favor of hunting. What really got me was watching her clean up the house, putting stuff back, especially pictures of me that had been missing from the living room for weeks. It was like she was trying to erase the past few months. Frank sat down next to me with a plate full of sausage biscuits and a mug of black coffee. "Damn," I said, "she really wiped me out of that house, didn't she?" Guess that security guard wasn't joking when he said, "Ma'am filed for divorce," Frank said. "Hold on, go back to the end of Friday night," he added. "What are her hands doing?" I rewound the clip. There she was, pacing again, phone in both hands. "No rings," I muttered. I skipped forward to around 10:30 Saturday morning. "There they are," I said. She was back in full divorcee mode. She played the part perfectly. Later that day, I walked into Harper's office. She was tall, sharp-looking, dressed in a fitted suit that screamed confidence. Her features were striking, but it was her amber-colored eyes that really locked me in. She looked me over. 6 feet tall, about 180, distance runner with some muscle. "I guess your self-description checks out." I gave a weak smile. Thankfully, she made it sound like a statement, not a question. "Have a seat, James." "I imagine the weekend's been rough," she said, gesturing to a chair. "It has been," I admitted. "Any updates from Nora?" I handed her my phone. I had forwarded some of Nora's earlier messages, one in particular where she told me not to come home. Then I showed her the newest one, which came in just as I was parking outside her office. She read it aloud. "Baby, please ignore my last message. Yes, I'm mad, but I need you home. I'm dying here without you. Please." She signed it Nora. Harper looked up. "All right, it does not sound like your wife did all this to get rid of you. I have a feeling once she knows you found out everything, she will not try anything like this again." "I cannot just pretend none of this ever happened," I said. "No, of course not," she agreed. "But if she explains everything, swears it is over, and promises never again, do you think you could forgive her?" Harper raised her hand, stopping me before I could let my frustration loose. "James, I have to ask about reconciliation," she said gently. "Any judge will expect us to at least bring it up. And to be honest, I get the feeling you still love her." "I do," I admitted, "but I don't see how I could ever go back. You saw the pictures and some of the videos, but you didn't live through all of it." She didn't ask me to explain further. She just nodded slowly and said, "I understand. But as your family attorney, it's my job to see if this marriage can be salvaged at all. I expect Nora will try to fight for it, but no, she cannot force you into counseling. Not after what happened. Not in this case." "All right then," I said, "let's talk about your plan. Let's figure out the financial side of things and start sorting through the property. If we're gonna do this, I want to move fast. Since this is about infidelity," I added, "do I still have to give her half of everything? And what about spousal support? My income is twice what hers is." We spent the rest of the morning going through questions like that. She had answers. By the time lunch rolled around, sandwiches delivered to the office, she had put together a plan that would soften the financial blow as much as possible. It was time to pull the trigger. I gave Harper a small nod. She picked up my phone, put it on speaker, and called Nora. It barely rang before she answered. Nora? Where are you? Are you coming home? Are you okay? What is going on with you? Her voice was panicked, desperate. Oh God, baby, I need you. Where are you? Before I could say anything, Harper raised her voice to get her attention. Mrs. Hayes. Mrs. Hayes, she said sharply. What? Who is that? Oh my God. Nora shrieked. Where's James? What happened to him? Harper kept her tone steady. Mrs. Hayes, I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Matthias Hayes. He is safe and unharmed. Frank's voice came through the line next. Who are you and why are you using James's phone? My name is Harper Quinn. Mr. Hayes gave me permission to use his phone because we figured you wouldn't answer if the call came from anyone else, she explained. He's fine. The reports from Mr. Calder were false, and I apologize for the fear they may have caused. She stuck her tongue out at me as she said that last part, trying to lighten the mood, but I could see the tension in her eyes. A prank? What the hell is going on? Nora yelled. Who are you, and why are you on James's phone? Mrs. Hayes, Harper said calmly, this call is being recorded, and I am using your husband's phone with his full permission. I need you to understand that. Nora's voice trailed off, confused and still angry. Why are you recording this? Who are you really? Harper answered firmly. My name is Harper Quinn. I am an attorney with Green Family Law, based in Telfair. Your husband, Matthias Hayes, has hired me to represent him in the dissolution of your marriage. There was a pause. Then Nora repeated, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing, the dissolution? Yes, Harper replied. Mr. Hayes wants this divorce to be handled quietly and efficiently. I pictured Nora sitting there in stunned silence, just echoing everything she heard. Harper continued, normally, you would be formally served with divorce papers, but Mr. Hayes hopes we can resolve this outside of court. Please contact your attorney as soon as possible. Attorney? Nora said, still reeling. Yes. Do you have something to write with? I will give you my contact information. No, I don't, she said weakly. That's all right. I will send you a message with my information, Harper replied. After that, this phone will be disconnected, and you will no longer be able to contact Mr. Hayes through it. Nora's voice cracked. But I need to talk to James. This is all wrong. We love each other. Is he there? Please, I need to speak to him. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hayes, Harper said gently but firmly. Mr. Hayes is not ready to speak with you. Please have your lawyer reach out to me. She ended the call just as Nora started to speak again. Well, Harper muttered, sending her contact details via text before powering off the phone. That went smoothly. Her voice had a sarcastic bite to it, but underneath it, she sounded tired. Almost sad. You all right? I asked, surprised to be the one checking in. I like protecting people from being mistreated, she said. But cases like this? They leave a mark. There's something strange here, James. I believe you're doing the right thing, but your wife doesn't strike me as someone who wanted to destroy her marriage. I don't get malice from her. I get something else. Like she's trapped in something bigger than either of you. Something she can't control. I sat back in my chair. So what am I supposed to do with that? Am I just screwed now? Was that the last good day of my life? She shook her head hard. No. This sucks right now, but it's not the end of your story. We're going to connect you with a good therapist. If you're open to counseling, you'll get through this faster than you think. She glanced toward the door. Frank waited way too long to start therapy. And it made things harder than they had to be. Do not make the same mistake. A few hours later, Frank and I were sitting at a downtown sports bar, eating chicken wings and shrimp, sipping on Bloody Marys while the game played in the background. Yeah, it cost me, Frank said, nodding toward the glass in his hand. I used to think therapy was just for people who couldn't handle life, like it was some kind of psychological mumbo-jumbo. But man, I ended up stuck in my own mess like a clogged toilet. You could have talked to me, I said, pushing away my plate. You did, sometimes. You could have said more. I knew you had my back, he replied. But watching you and Nora back when you two looked so solid, it hurt. Made me miss what I lost. Made me feel even more broken. It wasn't until I finally sat down with a therapist that I started to see straight again. But why? I asked. Because you two seemed perfect. And that made my loss feel even heavier. Then when I realized it was all a lie. He stopped mid-thought, and I finished for him. Now it feels like another dream turned to dust. He let out a breath and said, "Scrummy." Scrummy? I repeated, lifting my glass for a toast. Scrummy, he said again, raising his drink. And we clinked glasses. We clinked our glasses quietly and took long sips. The next day, Tuesday afternoon, I found myself back at Harper Quinn's office. She waved me into a small conference room where papers were already spread across the table. Have a seat, James, she said with a tired smile. I had taken the day off work. After updating HR on Monday, I'd spent most of my time at Frank's place, scouring the web for an apartment. There was no way I could keep living in that wreck of a house. I had gone for a 5-mile run in the morning, and another 3 before this meeting, hoping the endorphins might calm the storm in my chest. Harper had spoken to Nora earlier that day, and apparently she had something to say, something I needed to hear. When the receptionist led me to the room, I half expected Nora to be sitting there with her lawyer, ready for round 2. But the room was empty. No, just us, Harper said with a light laugh. We need space to sort things out. As I sat, she added, Nora actually wanted to be here. She wanted to explain herself. If this were a drama series, this would be the big final confrontation. Thank God this isn't TV, I muttered. Harper gave me a crooked grin. And for a second, I remembered how different she was from Nora. That was a good thing. You might be surprised, Harper said. But I think it's better if you hear it from her, eventually. Let me guess, I said, sarcasm rising. She wants to say she did it all for me? Harper's face shifted. Well. My jaw tensed. What the hell? I barely stopped myself from cursing. The smirk dropped from her face as fast as it came. She reached out, placing a hand gently over mine when she saw my fists curl tight on the table. No, oh, God, James, I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I wasn't trying to upset you. I stared at her, heart pounding. She's devastated, Harper said softly. That you found out. That you left. That you walked out without saying goodbye. I hadn't thought about it from that angle. But yeah. I had just left. And stayed gone. So, what did you mean then? She did it all for me? Harper sighed. The baby. It hit me like a brick. We'd been trying to have a child for nearly a year. 11 months, to be exact. I hadn't realized how desperate she had gotten. She went out and found someone like me to get her pregnant? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She wanted a baby badly, Harper confirmed, pushing a few documents across the table toward me. And she was willing to do just about anything to make it happen. I stared at the top page. A lab report. 3 months old. Ordered by my doctor, Dr. Halston. It took a few seconds before I realized what I was looking at. 2 samples, both marked with the same patient number, 25,473. Both marked low count. Am I, patient 25,473? I asked, dreading the answer. Harper nodded slowly. How did she even get those samples? I asked, watching Harper look away for the first time. She took them. Quietly. Without telling you, she said. When 6 months had passed and nothing was working, she collected samples and had them tested. Instead of talking to me, I said bitterly. She found guys who looked like you, Harper added. And used the old-fashioned method. I dropped my forehead to the table, heart racing. She said your insurance wouldn't cover assisted reproductive tech, too expensive, and you had already drained your savings on the house. I let out a deep breath. So if she pulled this off, and got pregnant by one of them, I wouldn't be on the hook for child support, right? Harper looked more somber than ever. Technically, no. But we'll need you tested. Low doesn't mean zero. Then what's the problem? I asked. Harper hesitated. After she realized you knew everything, and that you were threatening divorce, she went to her OB/GYN for a morning after pill. I blinked. But, that doesn't make sense. That guy was there Thursday night. It's been more than 3 days. She asked Dr. Halston to call you, Harper said. Nora wanted to undo it. She knew you wouldn't raise someone else's child. She panicked. I slumped back in the chair. It was sad, pathetic even. She'd gone to all that effort, and now she was trying to erase it. She did it right before my hunting trip, I muttered. She was planning to get pregnant, and then be with me on Monday, to make it seem like it was mine. Harper nodded, her face tight. I stared at the table. God only knows what diseases she might have picked up. She thought about that too, Harper said, taking my hand again. That's part of why she went to the doctor. After our meeting yesterday, I went back and looked at the camera footage more carefully. She paused. There's something else. What now? I asked, already bracing. At the start of each visit from her guests, she'd glance at their smartphones. I noticed it a few times in the footage. A month ago too. Oh no, I whispered. Wait, what do you mean? She was checking their STI and HIV test results, Harper said. What? They all get tested. Regularly. She was being selective. I sat there in stunned silence. Later that night, over pizza and beers with Frank, I told him what she said. So what? I asked him. Do you get tested regularly? Frank looked up from his slice and raised an eyebrow. You mean like, just on principle? Yeah. He took a swig of beer. Not unless I have a reason. I leaned back, eyes on the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. This wasn't just betrayal. It was planning. It was science. It was insane. Yeah, they do, Harper had said about the test results, back at the office. Later that evening, I brought it up with Frank over pizza and beers. So, do you get tested regularly? And, like, carry the results with you? Frank took a bite of his slice and nodded. Yeah, actually, I do. I always use protection, and I keep my labs on me. If I ever get back into the dating game, I'll probably have to keep doing that whole routine. He paused, looked right at me, and added, when you start dating again. Not if. I half smiled, but it faded quick. Frank leaned back. I gotta say, though, I'm surprised Nora's lawyer let her spill so much this early in negotiations. She doesn't have one, I said. That got his attention. Harper found her outside her office this morning, I explained. Pulled her in, insisted they talk. Told her to get legal representation. But Nora was still convinced that once I knew why she did it, I'd forgive her. That I'd come home. Frank handed me another beer. And how'd that work out for her, he asked. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Delusional, he muttered. Nora thought her plan made so much sense, that you just walk through the front door like none of this happened. I sipped my drink, sitting there in his apartment, trying to picture what came next. I wasn't even sure I could live in the same town as Nora, let alone under the same roof. So for now, Frank's couch was my home. About 10 days later, I found myself back in the conference room at Green Family Law. This time, it wasn't just me and Harper. Nora sat across from me, eyes red, shoulders small, beside a balding man in a dated suit, her new lawyer. On our side, it was Harper and me. And this time, things were formal. Mr. Hayes, her lawyer, Mr. Stratton, began, flipping through a folder. We seem to have two main issues. First, Mrs. Hayes wants to remain married. Second, if that is not possible, she believes your proposed settlement is inadequate. He cleared his throat and continued, it offers a 50-50 split of marital property but does not include all assets. And the proposed spousal support is, in her view, too low and too short in duration. Harper tapped her foot under the table and nudged mine, her version of told you so. I gave her a slight nod. Mr. Langley, Harper said firmly, Mr. Hayes has agreed to cover 60% of your client's legal fees, even after everything that's happened. That kind of fairness will not go unnoticed if we end up in front of a judge. I wanted this settled. I didn't want Nora to suffer, at least not to the point where she had to move in with her parents or live somewhere unsafe. Even after all this, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted it to end. Nora had refused to get a lawyer for days, still clinging to the idea that we shouldn't divorce. And now that she had one, it was a second-rate option. I had asked Harper to help her find someone competent, because she deserved at least that much. And what about my client's well-being? Harper pressed on. You've seen the photos, the videos. Imagine what it's like for him, trying to sleep at night with those images burned into his mind. She wasn't exaggerating. Therapy was a struggle for me, even though both she and Frank said it would help. Funny how the psychiatrist visits were covered by my health plan, but assisted reproductive tech, something that might have avoided this whole disaster, wasn't. I'm sorry, Jamesy, so sorry, Nora sobbed quietly beside her attorney. Langley reached over and gave her hand a squeeze. I sympathize with Mr. Hayes, he said, glancing toward me. But under state law, emotional matters like these do not influence how marital property or support are divided. Harper wasn't having it. Mr. Langley, she said sharply, if your client refuses this offer, we will not file it. And if this case goes to court, she tapped a much thicker packet of papers on the table, then we will file this petition instead. On the grounds of infidelity. Her tone made it clear, there would be no mercy if we had to go that route. Langley's hand hovered over the packet. He wanted to open it, but didn't. I've already helped Nora find solid legal representation, Harper continued. And trust me, if this gets public, it won't just embarrass Mr. Hayes. It will devastate Mrs. Hayes. We will subpoena the names of every man involved in her affairs. And we will request a paternity test on the child she tried to conceive through them. Nora gasped, letting out this low, gutted sound I won't forget anytime soon. Her shoulders folded inward. Okay, that's enough, Langley barked. There's no need to be cruel. She tried to conceive a child, Mr. Stratton added, defensive. Yes. But she also took action to prevent pregnancy after realizing what she had done. My baby, I whispered under my breath. That was supposed to be our baby. Harper reached across the table and placed her hand on mine again. Under the table, she pressed her foot to my leg, trying to anchor me. Nora turned to me, eyes pleading. It would have been ours, she cried. Yours and mine. The lawyers called for a short break. Harper led me out quietly while Langley guided Nora out the opposite door. When we came back, Langley didn't waste time. Mrs. Hayes took drastic measures, he said. She felt forced to, because of her husband's stubbornness. She wanted a child. Even though it could have been his. Harper stood up straighter, feeling the tension build in me again. And when she spoke next, her words were calm but directed right at Nora. We understand that Mrs. Hayes made a difficult choice, Harper said calmly. And under the circumstances, she may have believed it was the right one. Mr. Hayes and I both recognize the pain she must be carrying right now. She turned back toward Langley, her tone shifting. But unfortunately, there's still no confirmation that your client's attempt failed. There's a real possibility she's pregnant. And that uncertainty needs to be addressed at the root. I glanced at Nora. Her face had gone ghost white, like she might pass out right there. Harper went on, firm but steady. The agreement we've drafted clearly states that if a child is born, and paternity is in question, Mr. Hayes is not presumed the father. A DNA test will be required. If we have to go to court, we'll ask the same of any possible biological fathers. She stopped short of adding the part about what might happen if Nora chose to carry the baby. I had told her to leave that out. It was already tense enough in the room. Nora gripped her attorney's hand. They had clearly discussed what came next. Trying to regroup, Langley said, "We'd like to revisit Nora's original request not to file for divorce. She wants to seek counseling and work things out. She still believes they can start a family together." I nearly laughed, or maybe cried, I'm not even sure. The words hit like a punch. Why couldn't she have said that from the beginning? I said, trying to hold back the storm. Why didn't she just talk to me instead of betraying me like this? "Mr. Hayes," someone said to Stratton, or Langley, maybe Nora, but their voices blurred together until I slammed my fist on the table. I looked down, jaw clenched. "I'm already in therapy," I said, quiet but shaking. "My therapist says the why question is like a funnel. You can't get past the pain until you pour all the truth in." I turned to Nora. "He suggested I invite you to a session. But before I can even think about that, I need to know why you brought strangers into our bed. Why you didn't come to me first." Langley opened his mouth to defend her, but Nora interrupted him. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said. "I didn't want you to think less of yourself because you couldn't give me a baby. You're so proud of your body, of being strong and healthy, I couldn't bear to make you feel broken." "Oh my God," I said under my breath, trying to process it. "Am I that blind? Did I miss something in you all this time?" "No," she said quickly. "I just said it wrong." She took a breath. "If we could have afforded in vitro, I would have told you," she said. "But we couldn't. And I didn't want to wait another year or two. It wasn't about cheating or getting out of the marriage, it was about the baby. About the donor." Moss, her lawyer, chimed in. "She never wanted to leave you." Nora kept going. "Yes, I used aliases for the men online, gave them fake names, but all of it was really about you. I saw them as alternate versions of you, like in those multiverse comic book movies you love so much. It was always your face I imagined. Your voice. I tried to turn every experience into something that was still ours." She grimaced as I looked at her with disbelief, but she pressed on. "When I thought about getting pregnant, I pictured feeding our child, raising them, and believing one of your alternate selves helped make that happen." I turned to Harper. She raised her eyebrows slightly, asking without asking if I was ready. I gave her the faintest nod. She opened the folders circled and read the nuclear option. Quietly, she pulled out a series of large photos and slid them across the table. Front and back camera stills. And a few clips I'd recorded Friday night from outside the house. Nora's face went from pale to green in seconds. She stumbled out of her chair and barely made it to the trash can before vomiting. Our old house on 3rd Street sold fast. Even though we'd only had it for a little under 2 years, the market had gone up enough to cover the mortgage and moving costs. I moved into a condo close to work. Quiet, clean, functional. Nora moved back to her hometown, not to her parents' house, but to a small apartment she could afford. She didn't end up pregnant. She got a steady job, enough to live comfortably. I paid child support for 5 months, just in case, until the tests confirmed she wasn't carrying a child. It wasn't a big burden, but I was relieved when it ended. Not because of the money, but because it meant we could finally close the book. But her betrayal still haunted me. She had been the love of my life. And deep down, I believed her regret was real. Her last letter said she still hoped for reconciliation. But I didn't see that ever happening. Therapy helped. Slowly. I was able to let go of the anger, stop drowning in bitterness and shame. I no longer saw myself as some pathetic guy stuck in a life of dull routine. I had options. I had freedom. As for Tracy, she ended up working as a barista at a Starbucks and blaming Frank for how her life turned out. Of course, there was no truth to that. The police cleared him, he had witnesses and time-stamped footage showing he was at a Foo Fighters concert that night. Looking ahead, I've almost wrapped this up. Just one more spousal support payment, and I'll have fulfilled every obligation from the divorce. And when that's done, Harper Quinn will no longer be my attorney.